I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about the whole Henry Cavill Superman situation and like just the overall disjointed contract negotiations or lack thereof.
Next up, Superman, whose golf game is messier than Henry Cavill's contract negotiations.
Shut up!
With his cameo in Black Adam promising fans alike that he would be returning as Superman for like a sequel to Man of Steel, and an inevitable encounter between him and Black Adam. And, you know, with the whole James Gunn reboot and recasting Superman, you've seen a lot of fans say how they rather prefer Henry Cavill come back, or, you know, fire James Gunn, Peter Safran, bring back the old regime, And when you take all of that in mind, you start to realize that in no reality was Henry Cavill coming back as Superman. Like, Henry Cavill not returning to the role is pretty much a canon event. And don't worry, I'm going to explain the full why I think that's the case. So, obviously, when it came to the Henry Cavill cameo in Black Adam, a few months before Black Adam came out, and then around that time doing like press tours and press junkets, The Rock really put a lot of emphasis on giving what the fans want, providing for the fans and giving them what they've, desired, online. And that was so clearly hinting at the return of Superman, to the point where he pretty much just spoiled the cameo like a week or so before the movie came out, a bunch of like interviews and whatnot.
Because Superman, I grew up a DC boy. Superman, I love Superman. I loved Superman and I still do. Clearly.
Yes.
It always helps when you have that kind of clarity. But here's what I do know. Listening to the fans when I was wrestling always led and guided me, just like now. So for the past 10 years, as I was pushing Black Adam up this hill to get made, for the past 5, 6, 7 years, I was also listening to the fans. The most powerful and unstoppable force in the entire universe has been on the sidelines for too long. So myself, Seven Bucks, Danny Garcia, Hiram Garcia, we fought and we weren't going to take no for an answer. We were going to deliver it to the fans. And then at the end, welcome home.
There was one giant issue with this, as while Warner Brothers allowed The Rock to implement Henry Cavill at the end of Black Adam, James Gunn revealed that he'd been working on the script for Superman Legacy since August of 2022, a couple months before Black Adam came out in theaters. And Warner Brothers had no idea if James Gunn was going to do his own thing with his own version of Superman, or if he was going to implement like the Henry Cavill version. They weren't certain, but they let him cook his script anyway. So they had these two opposing ideals for what they wanted Superman to be in the future, and they allowed The Rock to do his thing and allowed James Gunn to do his thing at the same time. And Gunn also revealed that like maybe around that time as well, there were in talks for him and Safran to co-lead DC Studios and of what they wanted the universe to be going forward. And Henry Cavill returning to the role of Superman was never set in stone. Like, there was no written contract that he signed or anything like that. It was really just handshake and be like, oh yeah, sure, we'll bring you back. And so, a lot of the people to blame, like I'll see a lot of people blame like James Gunn for this whole ordeal. But in reality, all of this can just be down to the incompetence of Warner Brothers, which is no surprise. Especially, or whoever allowed Henry Cavill to make that Instagram post knowing nothing was set in stone. I remember there was an article around that same time that stated that Warner Brothers isn't even sure if they will continue with Henry Cavill even after Black Adam came out in theaters. And then there's the other side of the fandom that I've seen, not too common, but like I've seen, I guess around that time Henry Cavill announced that he wasn't coming back. It's like, oh, you should have gone back to like the old regime. You should have gone back to before Gunn and Safran took over, which is probably the dumbest thing I've heard out of anything DC related. Because these people need to realize that the old regime, like before Discovery took over Warner Brothers, they could not cook for their goddamn life. They had some of the worst plans for DC. Walter Hamada's big plan was for the Flash to sort of reset the universe and have Supergirl and Batgirl be like the focus of the DC universe going forward, and make Michael Keaton the main Bruce Wayne Batman of that Earth, which is why you had him appear in the Batgirl film, and then they were going to make like a Supergirl film. But the thing is, they weren't going to use Henry Cavill either. Henry Cavill was not going to be the main Superman of their universe. They were going to do like some Elseworlds project with the Ta-Nehisi Coates and J.J. Abrams' Black Superman movie. They weren't going to use like your traditional Superman. And this is confirmed by Walter Hamada himself. He said that his big plan was to do some like big Crisis on Infinite Earths type event film in which we would see Henry Cavill again, but we wouldn't see him before that, after the events of the Flash movie. And you can kind of tell their reluctance to use Henry Cavill's Superman with like, the headless cameo in Shazam, and then how like anytime they would mention Superman, it would always just be like by name. You wouldn't, and if he would appear in person, you would never see his face. It's like, why would they do all of this hiding for the character if they were going to intend on using that actor and his character? It's like, no. Either way you look at it, whether Warner Media was never taken over by Discovery, James Gunn, let's say in an alternate reality, never became the co-CEO of DC Studios, either way, Henry Cavill was never never coming back, sadly. And, if you're still one of those people that are upset with Henry Cavill not returning, I understand, I get it. There's a lot of anger and missed opportunities with that. But if I were you, I would just move on. We maybe see him in like a cameo role in like 20 years down the line. I don't know. But it's time to move on with James Gunn's DCU. It's a new reboot. Kind of. And if you're still not a fan of the new casting, you don't have to watch. I mean, no one's really forcing you to, endure something that you don't want to. And, you can pry on to what will probably never exist ever again.